Let's get to Congressman Ben Cline, Republican, 6th District, Virginia. Congressman Cline, great to have you with us.
John, always good to be with you.
Happy New Year to you and your family, sir.
Hey, you too. It's a busy year last year, in my first year in the swamp, and I came in during the middle of a government shutdown and left in the middle of impeachment, and then I start the new year off with Iran, and it's just the craziness just keeps on rolling.
You like your job?
Like is a strong word. I wouldn't use a word like that. I'd use I'm enduring the swamp at this point. We're battling each and every day. Nancy Pelosi and all of her madness and her caucus. It's ridiculous. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, it does.
Okay, I'm going to start here. We've got a lot to talk about today in the short term. Congressman Cline, let's get to the AUMF that passed yesterday. I've been in favor of voting on a new AUMF, getting it to the floor for debate since I've been on the air 9 years. Walter Jones, bless his heart, was with me on it. Scott Taylor got a promise from Paul Ryan they would put it on the floor. They never did that. They keep D6ing it, kill it in rules, right? Congress never wanted to vote on it, so it never had to go on the record. It takes hating Trump to finally get it to the floor. A lot of people, though, most Republicans except Matt Gaetz and a few others, voted no. Define what happened with that bill yesterday.
Well, just like everything else that Nancy Pelosi does, she's going to take something that we may be able to have a civil disagreement about, like whether we need a revisiting of the AUMF on Iraq, and turn it into a political attack on the president, and turn it into something, first of all, that had no authority of law. All it was a concurrent resolution that just kind of expressed the views of Congress, and the Senate has no interest in taking up anything like that. So it was pointless to begin with. But for her to word it in a way that brought in Soleimani and really just went after the president, it was just politicizing this whole process, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of Nancy Pelosi trying to twist everything into an attack on the president and on the things that he's doing to keep us safe, and whether it's Iran or whether it's impeachment, and you name it, she's bound and determined to go after him whenever she can. And we just laid down a marker that she has to stop doing that.
Right. So what they did yesterday was not really a debate for a new AUMF, right? It was just like she was making a statement. Is that what happened?
That's exactly right. I mean, the resolution was little more than a statement that the president should consult with Congress in the future, but that he shouldn't be able to take any action against Iran unless he's declaring war when he has to come to Congress, or if he's acting with some kind of immediate danger to American interests. And it's all you have to do is look at what's happened with Iran over the last 6 months,
right,
to see that there is an immediate and clear and present danger for American interests in the Middle East being threatened. There are threats from Iran. They've killed Americans.
Right.
They've attacked our embassy. Their proxies are all over the Middle East attacking civilians and military alike. So there is a clear and present threat from Iran. The president acted, and I'm glad he did.
So Congressman Ben Cline with us, Republican, 6th District, Virginia, that's the Southwest Virginia area. So what has been lost in this, and I just want to take one more bite at the apple. So rather than debate whether or not the present AUMF authorization for military force should be renewed and should be re-upped, the one that was passed in, 2001 after 9/11, rather than debate that, which is a legit debate, instead she passes a resolution saying that the president has to go to them for war with Iran or something. So it's not legally binding. And so they kicked the AUMF can down the road again. I mean, why didn't they just take the AUMF and say, look, if there's ever a time to debate this, it's now, and go have a full debate over whether or not that should get renewed or not? Why didn't she do that?
Because she isn't interested in actually getting things done here in Washington. She's interested in scoring political points and trying to beat this president in November. And it's, you're sitting there in Richmond where Emily Brewer is off at a committee meeting. It's not glamorous work. It's the hard work of government getting things done for the people of Virginia. And it's so jarring to go from a place like that, spend 16 years in the General Assembly, chairing the conservative caucus, fighting every day to make progress on conservative policy, and all of a sudden come up here where there is no actual policy debate occurring on an issue as important as our national security in Iran. It's politics all day long, and I don't know how my colleagues who go along with her games sleep at night, because it is an embarrassment to this country when you take a serious issue like our national security and play political games with it.
Unbelievable. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Truck the Truth across America. I'm in Richmond today at the state capitol, Emily Brewer's office. We're with Congressman Ben Cline. He's in Washington. I'll be there next week. It is good, though, to get out of there once in a while. You make a great analogy here of what, Emily just went to a committee meeting. It's not glamorous. It's not glamorous, when she's up there trying to get things done. But, you guys are just stuck there in this constant political world of nonsense. I want to get your reaction to this. I thought this was an outrageous statement by the Speaker of the House. Whenever she does something, I said, okay, this is over the top. She can't get worse. It happens again. Kara, let's get the Congressman's comments here on his Speaker, our Speaker, Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, cut one on Soleimani.
The argument would be made that putting the shoe on the other foot, if the United States had a high level, maybe the second most important person in the country, assassinated wherever, the United States might consider that assault on our country, right? And the Iranians might as well, even though this took place at the Iraqi airport. And so it's foggy. There are those who think, well, it was in Iraq, so it counts. Or it was an assault on Iran, so it shouldn't count.
The guy's a terrorist in a uniform, is what Denver Riggleman said yesterday. I mean, he's accounted for the deaths of countless Americans and those maimed, and she's defending the guy. What is her problem?
Every American should be insulted by that effort to make some comparison between a terrorist who is responsible for hundreds of American soldiers dying from modified IEDs that he himself was responsible for placing in the Middle East, and responsible for so many hundreds of soldiers getting killed and thousands getting injured. And then the civilian body count under Soleimani is just it's so high that for her to even suggest that there's some comparison with a legitimate government official, every American should be insulted. And it just even more maddening is how the radio silence we got from her over the course of the Obama administration, when he ordered more than 500 drone strikes that killed thousands of people, including an American. But it wasn't just in Iraq where we were authorized under an AUMF to be. It was in Yemen, It was over in Libya. It was in Syria. He was sending drones to strike in places where the AUMF in Iraq didn't cover, and it was a stretch to argue that somehow under the 2001 AUMF he had that authority to begin with. There's a legitimate debate to be had. I've talked privately with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle who are interested in a legitimate debate on this issue and pushed the speaker, Democrats who pushed the speaker, to hold off. Let's have a real debate. Nope, she's not interested. She wants to play politics, go after the president, show him how tough she is. You know what? Time will ultimately prove the president's actions to be correct, appropriate, and necessary to protect American citizens.
So what basically happened is, rather than have a legitimate debate on AOMF, War Powers Act, where everybody comes together, there's a debate in the well, there's a debate on the floor, it's bipartisan. Some Republicans are going to vote for curtailing the AOMF, some aren't. Democrats. Scrap all that, the hell with that, let's just do politics and have this showboat vote, basically, that amounts to nothing, and then let's call it an assassination. I mean, it's a sick time we've got, Congressman. I don't know. I really don't know. You say you don't know how they sleep at night. I think you're spot on. I just don't know. I mean, at some point in life, you just have to stand for something and stand for the right thing. Like, why are you there? Like I was saying this story when I saw the governor last night at an event. I've talked to him a million times. He was a friend of mine. I do VMI football. He went to VMI. I voted for him for lieutenant governor back in the day over the Democrat that was in there. I voted for him in the primary. And I just find the guy repulsive because I don't know what he believes. I don't know who he is. I mean, he's just pliable to placate whoever he has to in order for him to survive. It's just sickening, the whole thing. All right, let's get to this Ukrainian jet. Horrible incident crashes. And now we're getting some people saying that perhaps this thing was shot out of the sky. Have you heard anything on that?
Only what I've heard on television, which is sources, including American military sources, saying it appears that it was shot down, and Iran continuing to give two stories. One, that it was never shot down, that it tried to turn and return to the airport before crashing, and then another line saying, well, if it was shot down, we want to see the evidence America has that it was shot down. They've got the black box, but they won't let anybody look at what's in the black box. So it's clear that they did shoot it down, that most likely it was an accident because they were on high alert. But then you get, once again, the left trying to compare or place blame on Trump. The Trump derangement syndrome lives strong within them. And the liberals want to say, oh, well, they never would have shot the plane down if Trump hadn't killed Soleimani. Well, it doesn't begin with Trump acting against Soleimani. It begins all the way back. You want to go back to Beirut in the early 80s. You want to go back, to the revolution in 79. Iran has been attacking American interests for decades, killing Americans for decades. Finally, we have a president who's going to act and remind them that that's not acceptable, and I'm glad he did it. But for the left to blame him is just it's again insulting. Every American should be offended.
Well, it's what they do, and it isn't going to stop. We're with Congressman Ben Cline, Republican, 6th District, Virginia. That's the Southwest Virginia area, and he's in his first term. He's a freshman. Congressman, articles of impeachment. Pelosi says, yeah, I'm going to give them up pretty soon. One school of thought says she's taken her marching orders from CNN, who is now advocating through former Nixon lawyer Howard Dean and others that she just hold them in perpetuity, go through the election so it hangs over the president like a black cloud, so it can't be exonerated. Can't she do that?
She can, but it's laughable what she's doing to her members in tough districts, to Democrats in tough districts. Not only did she roll over them by forcing them to vote for impeachment, she's backing back over them again, or dragging them down the street by delaying in sending the articles down to the Senate. These moderate Democrats, or Democrats in swing districts, if you will, because they're not really moderate Democrats, they're liberals in moderate and swing districts. They were forced by Nancy Pelosi to vote last month for impeachment because she rushed to have the vote. And why did she rush to have the vote? It's because all of their primary filing deadlines hadn't come up yet, and they all still were at risk from a challenge from the left. Now, if Nancy had waited until the new year, these filing deadlines would start to close, and then Democrats would be free to vote no. You know? Mm-hmm. So for her it was actually a smart move on her part. She held all of her caucus together because she threatened them and said, we'll run liberals against you if you vote against impeachment.
So she threatened them with primary challenges that she knew would be funded because she's now a financial slave to her activist left-wing donor base, which is coming from the grassroots. That's where they're getting their money. They're not going to Wall Street these days because of some of the policies they're taking. So that's where they're getting the money, and that's where she threatened him with. But her public policy was that it's got to be done now because this president has got to be removed. And there was this great sense of urgency, and now she's going to just hold him in perpetuity. So there is no sense of urgency. And
well,
that all
that's
changed.
The best thing. Yeah, that's the best thing that's happened, because as she has held back just for a couple of weeks saying there's no urgency, it totally does away with the argument that this is somehow necessary for national security of the country, abuse of power by the president. He has to get out of there. That whole line of thinking is gone because of her delay in sending those articles over. So I think she's really undercut the urgency of the moment, the arguments behind her push, and I think it's just going to make it easier when the Senate finally does get a hold of the articles to have a trial that is swift. And if the facts are what we saw in the Judiciary Committee, or the lack thereof, it should be a quick trial.
Well, your best line here of the day, I'm going to be thinking about it all night, which is Ben Cline asking his Democratic colleagues in Congress, how do you sleep at night? I mean, that's really a great question. I mean, how do they sleep at night? I mean, some of the people in there are sane, right? I mean, they're all not Mark Levine's here in Northern Virginia, right? You got some sane people, and how do they sleep at night, right? How does Steny Hoyer, who is a serious legislator and a serious guy, like, how does he deal with this, right?
Pelosi's off the rails, and it's up to her conference to bring it back in line, to get off of this crazy train we've been on since the shutdown, through impeachment, now to Iran. The president I saw part of his rally last night. It was a great rally he had in Ohio. He's going to win Ohio. And the messaging is just, Democrats are the party of, giving solace to advocates of terrorism, and it's just embarrassing. So
they're going to lose.
I hope that he's going to do a great job, and he's going to win in November.
Trump is going to win again, only bigger. And Congressman, let me tell you something else. When you reconvene your Congress in 2021, you're going to be in the majority. They're going to lose both these seats in Virginia. Spanberger's done. We just did an internal poll there. She's down by 8. She's toast over what has happened. Scott Taylor's going to beat Loria. You're going to gain 2 seats there. You're going to win the House back, and you're going to be in the majority. It's not even going to be close. Ben Cline, thanks for being with us. Always good to have you on. This the congressman asking his Democratic colleagues, how do you guys sleep at night? Best line of the day. Congressman, thanks for being with us.